Jazzcast Pros.
What if your greatest leadership tool wasn't your planner, your hustle, or your mindset, but your sleep? In this episode of the Doze podcast, we explore how sleep fuels confidence, clarity, and presence, especially for women who are managing careers, caregiving, and everything in between. Learn why prioritizing your rest is not just an act of self-care. It's a strategy for showing up stronger, sharper, and more self-assured in every role you hold. Hello and welcome back to the Doze podcast. I'm your host, Kuczkowski, sleep health educator, certified sleep coach, and the founder of Start With Sleep and the Doze. This podcast is a space dedicated to changing the narrative around sleep, redefining it not as a luxury or something you catch up on, but as a vital foundation for how you show up in every area of your life. And today, we're going to be diving into another powerful truth. If you want to lead with real confidence, the kind that radiates from being clear-headed and grounded, you need to sleep like you mean it. That's because when you're well-rested, you look better, you think clear, and you show up sharper, not just for others, but for yourself. Sleep influences how we think, how we lead, how we connect, and how we carry ourselves. And for women who are more likely to juggle careers, caregiving, and everything in between, sleep is not just about recovery. It's a strategy, it's a strength, it's self-leadership. So let's get into why prioritizing rest is one of the most powerful ways you can reclaim your confidence, close the gap, and lead by example. Now let's start with a harsh reality. Sleep is a health issue that disproportionately affects women. And why is this? It's because we're often expected to wear every hat. We are working professionals, we're parents, we're partners, we're planners, we're peacekeepers. We manage the schedules, the school drop-offs, the work deadlines, the emotional load. And still somehow we're told that we need to do more, to be more, to prove more. But here's what no one talks about enough. Sleep is the baseline that holds it all together. When you don't get enough rest, everything feels heavier. Your mind gets foggy, your tolerance drops, I know mine does, right? Your decision-making gets shaky, and your self-confidence, well, it can start to disappear. And that inner voice, she gets louder and meaner. And you second-guess, you overthink, you burn out. And the research supports what we already feel. Women are 40% more likely than men to experience insomnia, which is trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up too early, waking up feeling unrefreshed. Nearly half of all women report struggling to fall or stay asleep multiple times a week. And we're more likely to suffer from anxiety, depression, and caregiver fatigue. We're also the ones setting the sleep tone for our homes. That means that if you're exhausted, your household likely feels it too. Your kids feel it, your partner feels it, your coworkers feel it. But why do half of women report trouble falling asleep or staying asleep at least a few nights a week? Well, all the demands are just a piece of it, a part of it. It's not a coincidence, it's a consequence. And it's not just those external demands, right? Our sleep is impacted by internal shifts too. Those hormonal changes that start at puberty, right? It starts from menstruation to pregnancy, postpartum, and menopause. And if you add in the mental load and societal pressure, it's no wonder why we're tired. And yet we keep pushing. But what if we stopped pushing and started prioritizing our sleep? What if we shifted our thinking from sleep as an obstacle to sleep as a solution? Because without it, our emotional reactivity increases by up to 60%, making it harder for us to stay calm, grounded, and clear-headed. It disrupts our decision-making and creative thinking, two non-negotiable skills in leadership and life. And it affects how we show up physically, from dull skin and puffy eyes to inflammation and dysregulated hunger cues that can affect our body confidence. And as for our mental health, sleep plays a massive role. We are twice as likely as men to experience anxiety and depression, both of which are deeply tied to poor sleep. There's this vicious cycle that exists. When you do not sleep, your mental health suffers. And when your mental health suffers, your sleep gets worse. So it's no wonder so many women are exhausted, overwhelmed, and unsure of how to get back to themselves. But here's the good news. Sleep can be that game changer. When you prioritize it, you can begin to rebuild the foundation for your confidence. Sleep strengthens cognitive function. Just one night of deep rest can improve memory, learning, and problem solving by up to 40%. That means clearer thinking, better decisions, and sharper instincts. Sleep also helps us balance hormones like cortisol, reducing stress and stabilizing our mood. So you're less reactive and more responsive. You start trusting yourself more, and that confidence, well, it radiates. You're no longer leading from a place of depletion. You're leading from depth. But it doesn't come unless you nurture and care for it. You need to set the tone for it. And if you're a mother, a partner, a household manager, you're already leading. And whether you realize it or not, you are setting that tone for your family's sleep culture. Your kids watch how you rest, your partner follows your rhythm, and your team feels your energy. When you prioritize sleep, you model resilience, and you create a ripple effect of permission to rest, to slow down, and to respect one's limits. Sleep is a superpower, so we need to flip the narrative on it. We need to stop seeing sleep as a luxury or a backup plan. If you want to close the confidence gap and truly step fully into your power at work, at home, and every space that you move through, you need to stop treating it as optional. Because again, it's not a luxury. It is your edge. It's your fuel. It is that superpower. And when you embrace it, you don't just restore your energy, you realign with who you are at your best. And here's what's at stake. Poor sleep increases our risk of heart disease by 63%. And, we know that heart disease is still the number one killer of women in the United States. So if we are to take care of ourselves, sleep is the foundation for it all. Sleep is not just about energy, it's about longevity, emotional stability, mental performance, and daily leadership. So if you're ready to reclaim your rest and lead with more confidence, I have some practical ways for you to begin. First is to claim and set a non-negotiable wind-down window. Schedule it like you would anything else. Make time for it. It's not a reward, it's a requirement. Just like you plan your meetings or pickups, schedule your nightly routine and guard it fiercely. You have to make time for it and not let it be an afterthought. Second, you need to treat your sleep space like a sanctuary and invest in it. It should be cool, dark, and calming. Make it a place your nervous system wants to return to. Make it beautiful, peaceful, and supportive of rest. You deserve a bedroom that works for you. And you want to make sure that you protect your boundaries, especially around things like blue light and late night noise. Scrolling and stimulation sabotage your sleep, period, right? So you need to set boundaries around that or invest in tools like the blue blocker glasses. I like to watch TV late at night, right? But sometimes we need those tools so that we can still engage in those practices in a very healthy way that doesn't hinder our ability to fall asleep. And I want to make sure that you're doing a weekly check-in. I want you to ask yourself, am I rested enough to feel like me? And if not, it's time to scale back, recalibrate. You want to cancel something and use the power of no. It is a full sentence. You also want to make sure that you're acknowledging your wins. If you slept for 7 hours or you skipped the late night email check or you protected your bedtime routine, I want you to celebrate it because that's growth. I want you to name it. I want you to own it. Sleep is self-leadership, but that comes from self-awareness. And last, I want you to remember that it's all about the small choices that you make throughout the day that set the tone for sleep at night. And if you didn't catch the episode, Bedtime Starts at Breakfast, I'm going to drop a link below where I talk about all the things that you can do throughout the day to set yourself up for sleep success at night. So this is what I want you to make space for, what I want you to hold, and what I want you to remember. Sleep is not the thing that gets in the way of your goals. It's what makes them possible. It's not what holds you back, it's what powers you forward. It's not a weakness, it's wisdom. It's not selfish, it's a strategy. Well-rested women lead differently. We listen better, we decide faster, we love harder, and we walk into rooms and command respect not because we're pushing through, but because we are powered up. So tonight, give yourself the space to get the sleep you need to rise with confidence, because the more rested you are, the more unstoppable you become. Until next time, embrace the truth that your most powerful self starts with sleep.